Is ATS racist? The truth about AI hiring discrimination. What if I told you that you're being rejected from jobs not because you're unqualified, but because an algorithm decided you don't fit before a human ever saw your resume? And what if that algorithm is biased? Today, we're talking about something most career coaches won't touch. Is ATS racist? And what can you actually do about it? Okay, let's get into it. I'm Imani, your AI career coach. My mission is to help you rise above the noise, stand out above the rest, land the job you really want, and thrive in the AI era, even when the system isn't built for you. Today's topic is uncomfortable, but it's real. You're breaking down how ATS systems work, whether they discriminate, and most importantly, how you protect yourself. Not theory, not corporate PR, the truth. Let's go. First, let's talk about what ATS actually is. ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System. It's software that employers use to filter job applications before a human ever looks at them. Here's how it works. You submit your resume. The ATS scans it for keywords, qualifications, and criteria the employer programmed in. It scores you, like a test. If you score high enough, your resume goes to a recruiter. If you don't, you're auto-rejected. No human ever sees your application. Now, here's where it gets problematic. Employers set the criteria. They decide what keywords matter. They determine what qualifications are required. And they can set filters that, intentionally or not, discriminate. So here's the question everyone's thinking, but not asking. What's stopping an employer from programming discriminatory criteria into their ATS? Don't hire people from this neighborhood. Or don't hire people with this type of name. Or don't hire people over 50. Or don't hire immigrants. For the last 400 years plus, don't hire people that are black. Legally, there are protections. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act prohibits employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. The Age Discrimination in Employment Act protects workers over 40. The Americans with Disabilities Act protects people with disabilities. The EEOC enforces all of this. So if an employer explicitly programmed discriminatory criteria, they'd be violating federal law. But here's the problem. ATS systems aren't regulated. There's no federal agency auditing these algorithms for bias. Employers aren't required to test their ATS for discrimination. And most of the time, the criteria are hidden. So what's really stopping them? Fear of getting caught. Fear of lawsuits. Fear of public backlash. But not strong regulation. Not transparency. And not consistent enforcement. That's the uncomfortable truth. Now here's where it gets even more insidious. Employers don't need to explicitly program discrimination. They can use proxy criteria that have the same discriminatory effect, and it's technically legal. And this affects multiple groups. Let me give you some examples. An employer sets the ATS to only accept candidates from certain zip codes. They claim it's about commute distance, but those zip codes just happen to be wealthy areas. Result? Black, Latino, immigrant, and low-income candidates, regardless of race, get filtered out. Let me tell you about Aliyah Jones. In January 2025, after months of unemployment, she created a fake LinkedIn profile as a white woman named Emily Osbourne. She used an AI-generated photo and the exact same resume as her real profile. Same skills, same experience, different name, different face. For 8 months, She applied to over 300 jobs using both profiles. Emily received interview requests at a rate of 57.9%. Aliyah's real profile? 8.9%. Recruiters who had ignored Aliyah suddenly responded to Emily. She documented it all in a series called Corporate Catfish, Being Black in Corporate America. Her video went viral and even sparked internal discussions at LinkedIn. Now, you might think this is just one person's experience, but research proves this is systemic. A 2003 study in the American Economic Review found resumes with white-sounding names like Emily and Greg received 50% more callbacks than identical resumes with black-sounding names like Lakeisha and Jamal. A 2016 study confirmed it. Minority job seekers who whitened their resumes got significantly more interviews. And in 2025, Aliyah proved it's still happening. This affects Black candidates. Latino candidates with names like Garcia or Rodriguez. Asian candidates with names like Nguyen or Patel. Muslim candidates with names like Muhammad or Fatima. Anyone whose name signals non-white or foreign. Same qualifications, different name, different outcome. That's not merit. That's bias. An employer programs the ATS to prioritize candidates from Ivy League schools or elite private universities. They claim it's about quality, but those schools disproportionately enroll wealthy students. Result? First-generation college students, immigrants, working-class kids of all races get filtered out. An employer sets keywords that favor digital natives or recent graduates. They're filtering out workers over 40 or 50. Legal? Gray area. But it happens every day. An employer sets the ATS to auto-reject anyone with an employment gap over 6 months. They claim it's about work history, but who's most likely to have employment gaps? Women who took maternity leave, caregivers, people who were laid off during recessions, immigrants adjusting to a new country, formerly incarcerated people who are disproportionately Black, Latino, and from low-income communities. People with disabilities who needed time off for health reasons. Result? Discrimination, but it's hidden behind neutral criteria. Some AI tools analyze video interviews and flag non-standard speech patterns. Southern accents, urban dialects, non-native English speakers. They're being scored lower, not because of their skills, but because of how they sound. Some ATS systems auto-reject candidates who indicate they need visa sponsorship. That's legal in some cases, but it systematically excludes highly qualified immigrants. And here's the scariest part. Even when employers don't intentionally program discrimination, AI can learn it. If an AI is trained on 10 years of hiring data, and that data reflects historical bias, the AI will perpetuate that bias. Amazon found this out the hard way in 2018. They built an AI recruiting tool trained on resumes from the past decade. Most of those hires were men. So the AI learned to penalize resumes that included words like women's chess club or women's college. Amazon scrapped the tool. But how many companies are using similar tools right now without knowing or caring that they're biased? The point is this. ATS discrimination isn't just about one group. It's systemic. It affects Black candidates, Latino candidates, Asian candidates, immigrants, women, older workers, people with disabilities, anyone who doesn't fit the default profile these systems are built around. This isn't hypothetical. There are documented cases of ATS discrimination. Amazon's AI recruiting tool, Learn to discriminate against women. Scrapped in 2018. HireVue used AI to analyze facial expressions and tone in video interviews. Studies showed it scored candidates differently based on race. Class action lawsuit. HireVue stopped using facial analysis in 2021, but these are just the ones that got caught. How many companies are using biased ATS systems right now? We don't know, because there's no requirement to audit, no requirement to disclose, and enforcement is weak. So why isn't this being fixed? Because it's incredibly hard to prove discrimination in ATS systems. Here's why. Black box algorithms. Employers don't have to disclose how their ATS scores candidates. No auditing requirement. Companies aren't required to test their ATS for bias. That's disparate impact is hard to prove. To prove systematic discrimination, you'd need to see hiring data across races. Companies don't share that. Individual rejections feel random. When you get rejected, you assume it's just you. You don't see the pattern. But when hundreds of candidates with ethnic names are getting filtered out by the same criteria, that's systematic, and it's invisible. So, are there any laws protecting job seekers? A few, but they're weak. New York City passed a law in 2023 requiring employers to audit AI hiring tools for bias and notify candidates when AI is used. But enforcement is minimal and penalties are low. Illinois has the Biometric Information Privacy Act, which regulates AI use of facial recognition in hiring. That's what led to the HireVue lawsuit. California has some transparency requirements under CCPA, but most states, no regulation at all. The federal government, silent. So right now, job seekers are largely on their own. So what can you actually do? Here's your action plan. Use the exact keywords from the job description. Mirror their language. If they say project manager, don't say project lead. If they say Python, include Python, not just coding. Use a simple ATS-friendly format. No graphics, no tables, no fancy fonts. Include a skills section with clear technical keywords. If you have an ethnic-sounding name and you're getting ghosted, consider using initials or a nickname on your resume. I hate that this is advice I have to give, but studies show resumes with white-sounding names get 50% more callbacks than identical resumes with ethnic names. Aliyah Jones proved this in 2025. Remove graduation years to avoid age discrimination. Use a neutral address or just city and state, not a specific neighborhood. Employee referrals often skip the ATS entirely. Reach out directly to hiring managers on LinkedIn. Attend industry events. Build relationships. The best jobs aren't found through applications, they're found through connections. Some companies publish diversity data. Some conduct bias audits on their hiring tools. Look for those companies. Support the ones doing it right. If you suspect systematic discrimination, you can file a complaint with the EEOC. Document patterns. If you notice you're getting rejected consistently despite being qualified, keep records. You have rights. Even if enforcement is weak, exercising those rights matters. Here's what I want you to understand. This isn't about blaming technology. AI isn't inherently racist, but AI reflects the biases of the people who build it and the data it's trained on. And right now, there's not enough oversight. Not enough transparency. Not enough accountability. That needs to change. We need regulation. We need audits. We need companies to take responsibility for the tools they use. But until that happens, you need to know how the game is played. You need to optimize your resume. You need to network. You need to protect yourself. Because the system isn't fair, but you can still win. So let's recap. ATS systems can and do discriminate, whether intentionally or not. Regulation is minimal. Enforcement is weak. But you're not powerless. Optimize ruthlessly. Network strategically. Know your rights. And keep pushing forward. That's how you rise above the noise, stand out above the rest, and thrive, even when the system wasn't built for you. If this video opened your eyes, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe so you don't miss our next episode, AI for Educators. How teachers and trainers can build their first AI classroom or curriculum. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to learn more about Aliyah Jones' story, check out her documentary series, Corporate Catfish, Being Black in Corporate America. I'll drop a link in the description. I'll see you tomorrow. Pause.